friends. Welcome to the Creative Impact Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Caldwell, and I'm so happy you're here. Each episode, I take some time to chat with fellow artists about life, faith, and the impact of the arts.
I really struggle with feeling like a failure. And so again, like that for a long time led me to just not do, because I thought, well, it's probably better to not fail at something than to try something and then fail at it. But I think you're just going to have to be okay with failing or looking like you don't know what you're doing, because you probably won't at first.
Yeah, it's okay to be new at something. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey everyone, we're back today for part 3 of our Entrepreneurship and Pursuing a Vision mini-series. If you're just joining us, during the month of October, we're focusing on conversations with artists and entrepreneurs who are at different stages of bringing a God-given dream to life. It has been so much fun connecting with these artists, and today is no exception. I am super excited to introduce you to today's guest, Keelia Clarkson. Keelia is an actress, writer, and filmmaker. She is also the editor-in-chief of Wallflower Journal, which is an online women's magazine, and the host of the brand new Dear Wallflower podcast. Keelia's husband, Nathan Clarkson, was a guest on the podcast back on episode 20, and her mother-in-law is Sally Clarkson, for those of you that may follow her writing and her podcast as well. It was so fun hearing about Keelia's years growing up and her experiences that led her into acting and writing. One of my favorite things that Keelia talks about in our conversation is the idea that it is okay not to be good at something and to learn to be okay with failing, because to grow, we're going to have to fail. We're going to have to try new things. So I am so excited for you guys to be encouraged by Keelia today, whatever stage you happen to be in your journey. She also shares about what it looks like to build community and creative work and the importance of being authentic in our art. Enjoy my conversation with Keelia Clarkson. Well, I'm so excited to have you on the podcast, Keelia. Thank you so much for joining me.
Well, I'm so excited to be here. When I got your email, I was super, super excited to just get in contact with another creative and fellow believer and just have some time to talk.
Yes, me too. This is so great. I wish we could be like in person over coffee, or tea.
I know.
I'm more of a tea drinker, but this is great too. I love it. It's just nice that we have the technology to make it work. So
I know. Thank God for technology.
Yes. So I was thinking back, I met your husband, Nathan, via Zoom as well. A couple of years ago, I guess it was, I think in 2020, kind of towards the very beginning of when I got started with the podcast, and he was super gracious to come on very early on and share his story. So I'm super excited to get to hear your side of the story today and get to hear more about your journey. So yeah, when did you guys get married? It was probably not too long before that, right?
It was right before the pandemic. We were thinking about getting married in April of 2020.
Okay.
And then we just started saying, it's going to be too difficult to get everybody together because we have families that live very internationally.
Okay.
And so we just thought, we don't want to wait anymore. We found this wonderful apartment that we want to move into. Let's just go ahead and hire someone to marry us and go to, we got married on his friend's rooftop in New York, which is just so it had this beautiful view of the city. And we were just like, let's just go for it. We don't want to wait any longer. So we got married in November of 2019.
Wow, that's so cool. Congratulations.
Yeah.
So you're coming up on 3 years then?
Yeah, which is really weird because I don't know. I almost feel like those pandemic years, it feels like a fever dream. Like It almost feels like it doesn't count.
I agree.
Yeah.
It's I was saying, it kind of feels like a blip, it's just sort of what happened. Yes. So yeah, it's not fair, but that's okay. I'm sure it probably brought y'all pretty close really fast too, because we're quarantined and have to just get through this together. So
yeah, it definitely did. It was okay, well, let's just be confronted with the hardest parts of being
Yep.
married just right off the bat.
Exactly.
So
Nice. Well, I'm super excited to hear more about everything that you do. And one thing that I'm so excited about is that you recently started a podcast as well. So
yeah,
we're like fellow podcasters now,
I
which is
know.
super fun.
It's a community, and I'm really glad I joined it.
Yes, for sure. And it's super great. So we'll talk more about it later, but people should definitely check it out. So
Yes.
yeah, it's a lot of fun. Well, do you want to just share a little bit about yourself, Keelia, and kind of what you're up to currently? And then we can kind of dive into some
Yeah.
history and all of that.
Yeah. Well, my name is Keelia Clarkson. I am an actress, a writer, and a filmmaker, and I live in New York City. I'm originally from Los Angeles, and I've just always been kind of excited about the most creative things and always just had a creative heart.
Love that so much. So, when you look back on your childhood, what are some of the, I guess, like early threads that you see of that creative heart and like your passion for the arts?
I feel like I don't remember a time when I didn't want to be creative.
Yeah.
I think I was about 5 years old when the first Lord of the Rings came out, and my
Mm.
parents let me watch it, which I was probably too young, like with the orcs are very creepy,
Right.
but they let me watch it. And at first I thought none of these people were real because how could they
Yeah.
be? They're so beautiful, and perfect.
Uh-huh.
And then as soon as I found out that they were real, I thought, well, I want to be one of those people. And
Aw.
yeah, and so I guess I just never didn't want to act. And then another side of it, as I have gotten more into writing and all of that, when I look back, I think, I was always writing short stories. Like I have a little diary of just a bunch of little short stories. And with my friends, I was always the one that we had this game called scenarios where
Mm-hmm.
we would just make up like really crazy circumstances for the person to like react to. So I'm like,
Nice.
and you're in this, and then he walks in and he says this to you, and
That's so
it
funny.
was just
I
the
love it.
goal. Yeah. The goal was to just make it like keep your audience like just captivated. And I was always the one that was like, let's play scenarios. Um,
So great.
and then, yeah, and I was always like making videos with my friends and like doing these silly skits. So when
Yeah.
I look back, I go, yeah, I was always just wanting to be a part of something creative and do something creative.
That's so cool. Yeah. I love how
Yeah.
you can see clues kind of when you're really looking back and like, huh, I did really love that. And like, and how
Yeah.
cool is it that, we still get to do some of those things that made us so excited, like as kids. So
I know.
super fun. Yeah. And I can totally picture that scenarios game. And I feel like it's almost like it would be a really good just game and acting school or that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. So you
It
probably
was
did that
kind
kind
of
of thing.
improv.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Basically improv exercises. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, do you want to just share with us your artistic journey, like the overview of what you've done? And I know you've been an actress and then also a writer. So just kind of how those things came into play.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've been taken in a lot of different directions, but I will say the one thing that has never changed is that I have always wanted to act.
Yeah.
And so obviously growing up in LA, like I did have a lot of opportunities to exercise that and get involved with acting classes, which was really just such a blessing.
Yeah.
And then as a young teen, I remember the show Glee came out and I was
Oh,
pretty
yes.
obsessed with like the first season.
Uh-huh.
And so everyone in that show was, singing. And I thought, well, maybe to be a well-rounded performer, I should learn how to sing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started, kind of getting into that. And then a lot of people told me, you have a really wide range. You should think about maybe trying opera or something.
Ooh.
And so for a while, I fell in love with opera and I thought maybe I want to become an opera singer. And that kind of changed. And obviously, I changed course. But I was just so excited to be trying out different creative outlets.
Yes. Yeah.
And yeah. And then as I got a little older, I made some friends that I would write some screenplays with. And for the most part, none of them ever were made, but it was still really fun to express ourselves and kind of like get some practice in and just figure out, okay, what do I like and what am I also actually good at? And yeah, so I feel like I've been down a lot of different creative avenues, but
Mhm.
they all led me to where I am today. And so I'm so thankful for all of them and the journey that I've been on.
Yes. So, what are some of the different professional experiences that you've had as an actress?
Well, I have not had as many as I would like, but I
Yeah.
have had some experiences on working on indie film sets, which is really fun. And I did, a film, I think it was 5 years ago at this point, which is so crazy to me,
Wow. Yeah.
that I was really lucky enough to have a friend that had already been cast in it. And she said, hey, my friend Keelia would really be perfect for this role. And so that was kind of my first like step into actually being on a real indie film set, which was great. And then since then, I've been working in the entertainment industry here in New York, and it's just been so much fun. I'm working on set every single week. And last year was a particularly good year. There are great years, and then there are not so great years when you're
Yeah.
creative.
Uh-huh.
And last year was a great year because I got my first line in a late night like skit, which was
Oh,
incredible.
cool.
Yeah, and so that was like a pretty big moment for me. It sounds so silly, but like as an actor, getting your first line the first time you're allowed to say a word on television is just like a pretty incredible moment.
Yeah, I can imagine that would
Yeah.
be really exciting and just such a cool
Yeah.
experience because, being an extra is one thing, but then being able to actually
Right.
like speak is like a whole nother level. So that's really cool.
It is. It absolutely is. So that's kind of a little bit of my journey with acting.
Nice. And then what got you into, well, I guess you were writing kind of all along the way, fun stories and things
Yeah.
like that. Yeah. So I guess then what got you started with your adventure, I guess, with the Wallflower Journal?
Yeah. Well, so it was during the pandemic, of course.
Yeah.
I feel like everyone had like all of these ideas
That's
during the
what this was.
pandemic. Yeah, exactly. So it was during the pandemic and I had been working on my skill with writing and I had started, falling more and more in love with it and also feeling more and more like something I was passionate about was speaking to women and giving them kind of a beautiful soft place to land. And
Yeah.
so I noticed during the pandemic there was not much gentleness. I think
That's a good
everyone
way to
was
put it.
pretty, yeah, I think everyone was really heightened and upset about a lot of things.
hmm
And I had been over the past few years been working on cultivating a more gentle heart because I think that was something I had as a kid and then growing up just different circumstances and all of that I lost that gentleness and I think for a while I had become pretty harsh. And so I saw all of this harshness in the world and I thought, maybe it is one of my purposes to bring back gentleness and also give women a space that is just away from the chaos of the world, away from, all of the really bad advice that you find online
hmm
that I followed for a while and found that it did not work for me.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to create a place specifically for women that would encourage beauty and purpose and whole minds and
Mm.
deep conversations and just so much more gentleness, just a soft place and beautiful place to land.
I love that so much. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, for people that don't know, do you want to just explain Wallflower Journal and kind of what
Yeah.
all that includes?
Yeah, so Wallflower Journal is my online magazine. I have a great like little crew of contributing writers as well that we put out everything from recipes to opinion pieces to book lists and movie lists and beauty tips. And really, it's just a place where I hope that women will come and be inspired to cultivate more beauty in their lives and live a life of purpose and meaning and just take a step away from all of the chaos and anger in the world.
Yeah. And I think it really does do that. I mean, just from what I've seen, and I love following you on Instagram as well, because it's really fun just having something that's uplifting and like, brings some sort of inspiration or encouragement to the day, because when you're scrolling, you see all sorts of stuff and whatever. So it's really nice to be able to feel like this is something that's added value to my day,
Yeah.
So I love that so much. What was it like starting your own business? Because I assume to make like an online magazine, you had to actually, did you create it into like an actual business entity?
Yeah, it's honestly not my skill set. Like that is like the thing that kept me away from it for a while, because I knew that I was gonna be the one that had to do everything like on the technical side. And I am not a technical person. That is not my intelligence.
It is super intimidating, at least for me as well.
Yes.
I'm like, this is a lot of information. And there's stuff out there like YouTube videos and all that are helpful and tutorials, but it's still like a lot to process.
It is, especially when you're just really not like a detail like person, I get super overwhelmed with like numbers and just, coding and just remembering things. And so that part of it is really hard. But I will say it's also just, this is an overused word, but it's really empowering to feel like I did this, I designed this, I put this all together, I thought of it, and then I made it into a reality. Yes. So I think that's the best part of it for me.
That's so cool. Yeah. So I'm curious if there's been any like unexpected things along the way as you've been building Wallflower Journal, and anything that just stands out as like, whoa, wasn't planning to have to figure that out or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, there have been coding issues or just like weird technical things that I'm like, I never would have thought of that. That it is unexpected when you don't know like everything that goes into designing and maintaining a website. It's not just designing it once, it's maintaining it as well. But if I'm honest, another unexpected thing, but this is like a wonderfully unexpected thing, I guess, is I did not expect so many positive responses to it.
Cool. Yeah.
Like it felt really wonderful to see so many people excited about it and actually get messages saying, hey, I'm actually really glad that you did this and you started this and you went out on a limb, basically.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, I just expected, maybe some people will see it, but there are so many people online trying to, carve out a space for themselves.
Yeah.
And so my initial reaction, I guess, like I'm a bit on the pessimistic side, which I'm trying to not be, but, and so I would like immediately go to like, no one's going to see this. It doesn't matter. Like, I'm just going to feel like I'm shouting into the void. And so that was really unexpected to get so many people going, no, we actually really love this. Yeah. Please keep doing this.
That's so encouraging. Yes.
Yeah.
I feel like you're not just speaking into like emptiness. Like people are actually receiving it. Yeah. That's so encouraging, and a good, I think, reminder that people are watching and seeing what you're doing, whether that's in everyday life or online or whatever. So such a good point. And I'm curious to hear, with everything that you've been putting out there, what was a good like motivator for you to just go ahead and take that first step or like take the next step in the process?
I think feeling like there had been so many times in my life when I didn't take that next step. And that had led me to a place where I was frustrated and I felt like I didn't have momentum and I wasn't moving forward. I think I finally just thought, this is something that I can do. Kind of, it's not like zero risk, but it was low risk enough that I'm like, okay, I can start posting on this. Maybe no one will like send in their own article. Maybe I'll just be posting everything myself.
Yeah.
But I can do this and see what it makes me feel. If I feel like this is something worth, continuing after putting in a year of work.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it was just like this feeling of I need to do something.
Yeah.
You know?
Mm-hmm. Just that little bit of a fire, like burning. Need to take that step.
Especially like during the pandemic when every acting and performing opportunity was just taken away.
Yeah.
So I was creatively, like, I guess, frustrated and pent up.
Yeah. It's pretty insane, like the impact, I guess, that the arts community felt, I feel like. And it's really exciting to see it starting to come back to life and, much more live performance happening again and kind of getting back to a quote normal, process and things like that. Yeah, this is sort of a side note, but do you want to share a little bit about what that felt like as a performer and as someone who was really involved in the arts community to just see it all just stop and shut down?
It was painful is the first word that comes to mind because it's this community that I love so dearly. And I think without it, I don't really know who I am.
Yeah.
And so when I felt like my ability to be part of something was taken away, it was hard for me because I just felt like, okay, well, then what is my purpose? And I think everyone felt like this during the pandemic, but I would just wake up and be like, why am I awake? Like, what? I don't have a reason right now to get out of bed.
Yeah.
So it was honestly just super painful to see the industry go through such a period of just nothingness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess as a believer too, there's that element of trying to almost like wrestling with, what is my purpose? And, God, what do you have for me to do? And when you're in those places of, I don't see like a clear answer to that, like everything has changed. And I feel like what I was pouring my energy into is no longer there. But how do you feel like, I guess the Lord led you in figuring out kind of where to put your energy and focus during that time?
That's interesting. I think I was kind of a new Christian at that point.
Yeah.
Like I was raised Catholic, but if I'm honest, having a relationship with God wasn't really part of that. And so I had fallen away from faith for a while. And so when the pandemic hit, I think I was like just a couple of years into reclaiming and refiguring out my faith.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so I wasn't super, like, I was still getting used to leaning on God again.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think those months really forced me to go, okay, what have I been building? What have I been feeling called to build? And going back to like, I had been over the past couple of years since reclaiming my faith, I had been kind of really convicted with, I have not been a very gentle person. I lost that part of myself. And so I thought, okay, that is something that has become really important to me since knowing God.
Yeah.
So maybe he's leading me in this direction, and maybe this is something that I need to pay attention to and pursue. So that was, I would say that was kind of how he led me in that time.
Yeah, that's so cool to just think about, what he was kind of stirring in you in a way and already had been kind of you've been processing through it and seeing that continue to just like develop and turn into something more. That's super cool. Thanks for sharing those little sidetracks there. Just curious. So I'm curious for somebody who's listening right now that maybe is at the very beginning stages, they have a vision in their mind of like, oh, that would be really cool. Do you have any other advice for someone in that place? I feel like what you said earlier about just like taking that next step and figuring out like, what is it that that's in your heart to do? But is there any other advice that you would give someone?
I would say you're gonna have to be okay with doing things that you don't feel like you're good at.
That's so good. Yeah.
Yeah. Like what I mean is I struggle especially with wanting to be the best at what I'm doing right off the bat.
That hits me too. I'm like, oh.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't want to deal with not being good or, I guess I don't know if you would call it like perfectionism, but I really struggle with feeling like a failure. And
Mm,
so again, like that for a long time led me to just not do because I thought, well, it's probably better to not fail at something than to try something and then fail at it. But I
yeah.
think you're just gonna have to be okay with failing or looking like you don't know what you're doing because you probably won't at first.
Yeah,
You know?
it's okay to be new at something. Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
exactly.
Yes. That's such good advice. I think that that will resonate with so many people. And I totally feel that too. I'm
Yeah.
like, I want to be good at it. I want people to feel like, oh, this is amazing, but it's okay to take a step back and be like, this is the first time I'm doing this. So I'm going to probably make mistakes and that's okay.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Yes.
It's okay to fail. It's actually
Uh-huh.
so much part of the creative process.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
yeah.
I know there's a lot of quotes out there about failure and how, it's like the people that have succeeded are just people that have failed a lot more times than you have, maybe. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, that's true.
No, it's so true. It's so true. Like when I look at
Hmm.
the actors, that are on stage getting an Oscar,
Yeah.
they just went to more auditions that they didn't book than I have. You know,
Right. Right.
they just failed more and then they ended up succeeding.
Yes.
But yeah, it is just like, yeah, they probably just went through more than I did.
Hmm.
That's why they are where they are.
Exactly. That perseverance, just
Yeah.
stick with itness kind of. So, yeah. Well, speaking of acting, and I'm like thinking of all the things you're doing. So, you've got,
It's a
yeah,
lot.
I'm like, wow, you've got Wallflower Journal. Now you're starting the
Yeah.
podcast, which we can talk more about too. Still auditioning and, getting
Yeah.
hopefully, opportunities to act and things like that and writing.
Yeah.
What does it look like balancing all these different creative areas in your life and just
Hmm.
being a wife and a human,
Oh
and a
yeah, that
friend?
too. Honestly, it looks like being really busy.
Yeah.
And I know that's like kind of an ugly answer,
It's okay.
but it looks like using the reminder app on my phone a lot
Hmm.
because otherwise I will forget because I typically have about 10 things that I'm like, well, gotta go get that done, gotta go get that done. So yeah, it looks like being incredibly busy, but it's the kind of busyness that I am happy to be
Hmm.
because it does make me feel like I have a reason to get out of bed
Yeah.
and I have a reason to not keep on scrolling through TikTok.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
Like, yeah, so it just looks like okay, I need to just get a list in my mind in order. These are all of the things that I need to hit on today, and
Hmm.
just trying to stick to that as much as I can.
That's good. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
amazing the difference I've noticed in myself, like even in the past week, of if I can actually set, like, okay, this is a time that I'm setting aside for this, or like, here's my top 3 things today, setting
Yeah.
those priorities can be really challenging for me for whatever reason. And so I think that's been very helpful if I actually stick to the
Yeah.
plan. So,
Yeah. Or just because I also like have approach avoidance and
mm,
even just responding to a simple email is just for some reason it feels like it takes a lot out of me.
yeah.
And so I would a lot of times like put off emails or put off this or put off that. And then it would be like, "Ah, I gotta catch up.
Yeah.
And so I am trying this thing. It seems to be working when it's like, if I think of it, I just go do it. Like if
Ooh,
it's
yeah.
something that can be done in 5 minutes, it's not gonna totally derail whatever else I was doing. If
Hmm.
I think of it, I'm not gonna go, okay, I'll just do that later. Like just do it right now,
That's
you know?
smart. Yes. I think
Yeah.
that's super wise.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that would go a long way for me too. Just get it done in the moment. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I know I'm that kind of person that's like, all of a sudden I'm cleaning the whole house because I don't want to do that other thing that I'm like putting
Right.
off.
Right.
So that's awesome. So I really would love to hear more about the podcast as well. So do you want to just share with people,
Yeah.
Dear Wallflower, what is the Dear Wallflower podcast vision?
Well, the idea for it, because it's basically an advice podcast that is like modeled after like the Dear Abby column, where
Yes, I
people
love
will
that.
send
It's
in
so fun.
letters. I used to read that. Like, I don't know if it comes out every day, but I used to read it basically every morning with my mom.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, it was like okay, we're sitting around the breakfast table now, dear Abby.
Uh-huh.
So that was always like something I really loved. But the idea for actually starting the podcast was, number one, I just know a lot of people in my life that have a podcast. And I
Mhm.
was always like, it would be fun to have a podcast, but I don't know what I would talk about. And I'm not somebody that can talk by myself for 30 minutes. So I was like,
Yeah.
I really have to come up with like something that would make sense for me specifically.
Hmm.
And then we were watching this show, Frasier, which I don't know if you've ever seen it, but
I've seen like
he's,
parts of it. Yeah, I haven't like watched a bunch of episodes
yeah,
straight, but
it's like a silly, like fun sitcom, but he's basically like the main character is this psychiatrist that has like a radio show where
hmm.
people will call in and say, doctor, I'm struggling with this. And then he'll kind of just give them like 5 minutes of advice.
Yeah.
And I thought that would actually be a pretty cool podcast.
Yeah.
So,
Love
so
that.
then, yeah. And so I thought it also kind of tied in with like what I'm already doing with Wallflower, which is trying to call women and inspire women to live more whole lives.
Hmm.
And I thought, how cool would it be to have a podcast where I have a co-host that I sit down with them and we talk about really real things that women are actually facing today. And we can
Hmm.
have women send in their letters and we can offer whatever wisdom we have on the subject.
I love it.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it's so fun. And I love, okay, the segment at the end where you do, was it May I Suggest? Is that what it was?
Yeah, may we
Or maybe
suggest? Yeah.
suggest. I was like, that's so fun. It's a great way to find like, new books or movies or whatever
Yes.
things that would be music, stuff that would be relevant to people now and be something that would like open up our world to new things. So
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
a super, I like that little segment at the end too.
I'm glad.
Super
I thought
fun.
that was like a fun way to just cap it off and just
Yes.
everyone is always looking for a new something to love. So, yeah.
Exactly. And as you were talking about podcasting, and I'm the same way where I'm like, it would be really hard for me to sit and just talk by myself for, half an
Yeah.
hour or whatever. And it made me think about, so your mother-in-law, Sally Clarkson, and she's just like
Yeah.
incredible at just like
I don't know how she does
giving
it.
wisdom. Yeah, it's so
It's
amazing.
just this fount of wisdom that just never shuts off.
Yes.
Yeah.
So fun. And I love her like Tea Time Tuesdays and all
Yeah.
of the things she's doing is so beautiful. And that's actually where I heard you speaking, was when you and Nathan were on her podcast. Like, this is so fun. And so
Yeah.
I'm super glad that it kind of like triggered this thought of like, oh, I should talk to Keelia. This would be really cool.
Yeah.
She seems like a kindred spirit. This would be really fun.
Yes.
Yeah. So with that being said, I know podcasting can be, and writing probably, can be kind of a lonely field because,
Yeah.
editing is just sitting by yourself or writing is sitting by yourself. The nice thing is you have a co-host. So that's really great as far as
Right.
like the actual recording part. But how have you been able to like build some community within the work that you do?
Yeah, I mean, this is a huge struggle of mine, is finding community,
Yeah.
because I'm, first of all, just a very large introvert.
Yeah.
And so I am probably too okay with just being at home
Nice. Yeah.
and not seeing anybody.
Mhm.
But I've also recognized that when I give into that tendency, I am so much less healthy.
Mm.
And so for me, it has looked like challenging myself to reach out to somebody that is like on my, kind of radar, that has
Yeah.
come up a few times. And I'm lucky enough that a few of the women that have contributed to Wallflower have actually become really dear friends of mine. Like,
That's amazing.
yeah, like even my podcast co-host, like, I'm so thankful she took this initiative when I first announced Wallflower, that she just emailed me and was like, hey, I would love to connect with you. I'm in Colorado and I'm pretty
Yay.
close to where you are. And so just through that, we would just, continue emailing each other, texting each other. And we just ended up forging this friendship, even just from, from Colorado to New York, which
Yeah.
like we've seen each other like a handful of times in person,
Hmm.
but it was about being intentional and saying, no, I do think it is important to find these kindred spirits and then also actually put effort into knowing them and connecting with them, like
Yeah.
even if it's easier to just like be alone at home.
Yeah, so good.
Yeah. And then it also just like, it even called my attention to people that were semi already in my life
Hmm.
that I just hadn't taken the time to get to know.
Yeah,
And,
interesting. That's good.
she started writing for me. And I thought, wow, like I always really love what she writes. Like maybe we should get coffee or something. Maybe we should go to like a movie or
Yeah,
something.
like this is resonating. And yeah, I feel like we
Yeah.
connect or whatever. Hmm.
Yeah. So it was like, I could have made this friend so much earlier, and I'm glad I'm making it now. But yeah, it's about just noticing these people that I think it was C.S. Lewis says like friendship is it's like you are both headed basically in a similar direction. I don't quite remember his like quote,
Yeah,
but
that's
it's like
okay.
you're both headed in a similar direction, and friendship is born when you look over and you say, "You too."
Yeah,
So
I love that
I'm
so much.
noticing that. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Like, wow, okay, cool. Like we connect on that and so good. I
Yeah.
think that's
Yeah.
a really, really good thing to consider, for all of us, especially that are in these sort of individual little pods. Like, how can we
Yeah.
branch out and create community within that? So,
Yeah.
yeah, well, I totally love what you're doing. And I can't believe time always flies when
I know.
doing these conversations. So, one thing that I always do love to ask, though, before we go is, is there something that you have on your heart that you would want to share with other artists right now?
Mm, I think, and I'm partially saying this to myself to remind myself,
Yeah.
I think when I look at the art that has affected me the most, has impacted me and stuck with me, it's always the art that was really authentic
Mm.
to a point where it was probably uncomfortable for the artist to be so open and vulnerable
Hmm.
in front of people that they don't know. They don't know who's going to pick up their book. So I think my word of advice to, the creatives listening and to myself is to just be vulnerable, be authentic, and have a reason for the art that you're creating, I think.
That's good. Yeah.
Because there are so many people that want to have like the badge of being a creative, because I guess
Hmm.
it's, romantic. But then I don't sense that they necessarily like have a purpose or like a driving force behind wanting to be this creative person.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I think figure out your why. I like to call it your why, which is like why I get up, why
Mm.
I put effort into something that I'm not good at to begin with. It has to mean something to you for it to mean anything to anybody else, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
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 That's really, really good wisdom and advice for people that are listening. So, and for me, like also can take this to heart, just being authentic, not being afraid to be who God made us to be, and
Yeah.
because everyone else is already taken, as they say. So,
So true. We've all heard that like a bazillion times, but it's really true.
yeah, such
And
a
we
good
have to
reminder.
keep reminding ourselves.
Exactly. We need that like constant
Yeah.
reminder.
Yeah.
So, and then last like fun question is what is one of your favorite things right now? So this kind of is in line with like,
Hmm.
may we suggest?
Yeah, I was gonna say this is like very open-ended and I like that.
Yeah.
Um, I love a lot of things right now. But
You can give
I
more than one
think
if you want.
I think this is I will suggest a book because I normally do.
Love it. Yes.
And right now I'm really loving this detective series that it's called the Gemma Monroe Detective Series.
Sounds fun.
And it's honestly so fun. And I'm like I love mysteries. Like I love Agatha Christie.
Yes.
Yeah, I love, whodunits and all of that. And so we had discovered, because both my husband and I read this book,
Okay.
or these books. I think there are 4 of them. And the first one is called Inherit the Bones. And we had discovered this book a couple years ago because we're both mood readers. So like,
Mhm.
I'm not going to read a story that takes place in Colorado if I'm living in New York right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So, so we go to Colorado in the summers and the winters. And we were there one summer and we were looking for a fun book that we could both read at the same time and discuss.
Cool.
And we wanted it to take place in Colorado. So this one does. It's like this little mountain town, and it's this, detective that's
Mhm.
figuring out this murder in this little town. And it's like, this is supposed to be a safe town. And in the first book, she's like very pregnant, which I just loved that because I don't know, it's just you don't typically see pregnant detective stories.
No, that's true.
So
That
I was
does
like,
seem
this is
like,
very unique.
yeah, it's more unique for sure.
Yeah. But so everyone that I recommend this book to, I always tell them that it's like this perfect mix of deep and digestible writing,
Mm.
which I find is
Ooh.
a really rare combination.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
for
So
sure.
I just feel like this is a perfect book for this time of year, this,
Yes, the
October and
fall.
spookiness and
Uh-huh.
yes.
Perfect. Are you more
Yeah.
of a fiction or nonfiction person in general?
I think I probably love reading fiction more, just the
Hmm.
creative in me, but I actually challenge myself to always be reading a fiction and a nonfiction.
Ooh, I like that.
So,
That's
yeah,
really
that's
good.
how I balance myself and I don't just like run away and only read like mysteries,
Yes.
you know?
That's great. I love it. And I love how you and Nathan are like sometimes reading books at the same time. And I think that's a really
Yeah.
fun idea for just connecting,
Yeah.
in marriage or friendship or whatever, just getting to kind of
Yeah.
have fun like that. So very
Yeah.
cool. Well, this has been such a fun time and I love getting to know you. This is really great. So I'm glad that we got to
Yeah.
connect. And I'd love to let people know where they can connect with you and also with Wallflower Journal and Dear Wallflower. So what's the
Yeah.
best way to do that?
Well, first, I just wanted to say this was really fun for me too. And I was
Aw,
just so glad
yeah.
that we carved out this time today.
Me too.
But you can get in contact with me you can find me on any of the socials. I'm definitely most active on Instagram.
Okay,
I'm
cool.
at Keelia.Clarkson. And yeah, check out wallflowerjournal.com. We have new articles coming out every single week about, recipes, relationships, book lists, all kinds of things. And you can follow it on Instagram at Wallflower Journal Official.
Okay, cool.
And Dear Wallflower is available on all the podcast streaming places.
Yay. How frequent are your episodes?
It's every week.
Okay.
Yes. Every
Awesome.
Wednesday, new episode drops.
Hey, very cool. Well, I'm so
Yeah.
excited for people to connect in and get to see the work that you're doing and the people that are contributing as well. So thank you again for taking the time to do this.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to see this go live soon and hopefully hear from some people. I would love to hear from anybody that listens and connects.
Yeah, I would love that as
Yeah.
well. Yes, people go say hi on Instagram,
Yeah.
let Keelia know that you were listening. That would be awesome. You guys, wasn't that just so fun? I loved getting to know Keelia, and I imagine you did as well. You should definitely check out Wallflower Journal Official on Instagram and also just wallflowerjournal.com to see everything that they are doing and posting. I've already found myself sharing so many of their really beautiful quote images, and I think you'll love their content as well. You can also go subscribe to her new podcast, which is Dear Wallflower. You can find all of the links, the full show notes, and additional resources on our website, creativeimpactpodcast.com. Next week is going to be the final episode in our Entrepreneurship and Pursuing a Vision mini-series. I think it's going to be so much fun, and I can't wait for you to meet our guest. Next week, I'll also be announcing our November mini-series topic, and I'm super excited to let you know about some fun projects that are going on behind the scenes. If you're enjoying the podcast, I invite you to check out our Patreon community. This is a place where you can support the show with monthly donations and receive bonus content in return. You can learn more at creativeimpactpodcast.com/PATREON. That's creativeimpactpodcast.com/Patreon. If you haven't already, I also invite you to subscribe to the show. And if you leave a rating and review, that really helps other people to find the podcast. Thank you so much for listening to the Creative Impact Podcast. The music for the show was produced by Michael Cash. Until next time, remember that you were designed to create, you were made to inspire. Continue living with purpose and making an impact. See you next time, friends.